Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 action disaster film, Mega Lightning. The film is directed by David Gregory and it stars May Kelly, Gillian Broderick, Chris Cordell, Richard Kovacs and Carl Hughes. Now the film focuses on a freak lightning storm, the likes of which has never been seen before, and this is based in the UK. We are kind of told through like a number of like radio newscasts that there's this lightning storm. It's very, very dangerous, and the reason what makes it quite unique and dangerous is one of the things it does is it can kind of tune into like the body, the body's frequency or something like that, so that it drastically increases the chance of you getting struck by this powerful lightning if you go outside. So we have this one family. We have two daughters and there's a mum and dad. The mum and dad are going off on like holiday stroke vacation. They're not necessarily taking this storm too seriously. And the daughters, while they're away, are having a party with their boyfriends. And also there is like a serial killer who is kind of abducting women and doing what he does in like a remote farm or something like that. And all these stories kind of interact. As this storm hits, it affects everybody in different ways until all their stories kind of meet by the end, or with the backdrop of this mega lightning going off. Right. What are my thoughts on Mega Lightning? Well, this is another Scott Jeffrey mass-produced, low-budget, UK-based film. Now, if you've seen any of the Scott Jeffrey films, or you've seen any of my reviews of the Scott Jeffrey films, you kind of know what you're going to get here. Some of these films are so ridiculous they almost fall into the so bad it's good category, and I have enjoyed some of them for those reasons, and some of them fall into the just not very good category. And while this film isn't all completely bad and terrible, there's also not an awful lot to recommend here, unfortunately. It's one of those films that has got kind of a bit of a ridiculous concept that just doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, that takes itself too seriously is what I meant to say. And it's not a massive amount of fun to watch because of that, because it takes itself way too seriously, in my opinion. And it's because it's low budget, the lightning almost takes a back seat here. The film is more focused on the human stories here, as these Scott Jeffrey films tend to be, because they don't have the budget to focus and have the effects and make it a large-scale disaster film, because they just can't do that. So we've got these stories, going on while this lightning storm's going off. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because some of the effects for the storm is just not very good at all, really. I mean, they're passable, I suppose, occasionally, and it is quite fun seeing someone struck with these powerful bolts of lightning and almost disintegrating because of it. But most of the time you just kind of see people stood there shaking, looking like they're having a seizure, with like some pretty poor lightning effects going through them, sort of thing. So it doesn't really work, this film, as a disaster flick, because it's not large scale enough. It's like, again, it's lightning storms that you only kind of see the impact of them on this English countryside, and it affecting a small amount of people. And then you've got, like I say, this serial killer. It's just like it's just not menacing at all. It's a fine line between being a pantomime villain and like pulling off a villainous performance, and unfortunately this performance is just too pantomime for my liking anyways. Some people out there might like it. For me, it didn't work. He kind of does this thing where he kind of spouts almost Shakespearean dialect as he's talking, which seems later in the film to be completely abandoned. It's just a bit odd, and I know he's not exactly sane, this guy, but you just never really got the impression he was particularly sinister. And you never really felt like, these characters were in serious danger, either from the lightning or this serial killer. Because even though we're told that this lightning can tune into the body's frequency and you're in serious danger if you go out, there's many a scene where people are outside and, for a good amount of time and they don't get struck. It almost seems like potluck that you're going to get struck by lightning. So there's other things as well. I mean, the scenes where they're driving along, these characters, in this terrible storm. You could argue in the relative safety of a car, even though you're not really, because you do see how powerful these lightning bolts are. And then this character, them all talking about how dangerous it is, and then a character says, he claims it's not safe to drive anymore. I think it'd be safer if you carried on foot. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you've just sort of said it tunes into the body frequency. Well, how are you going to be safer on foot? So there's stuff like that. The dialogue is a bit dumb. And then the two daughters go looking for their parents as they went driving off earlier in the film. And the mother rings them from this farmhouse thing where the serial killer is, saying, don't come looking for me and stuff. But she doesn't tell them where they are. And they go looking for them and they just find them. Like that. And it's like, wow, there's things like that just don't make sense. Things happen in this film conveniently just to move the process of the film along. And some films you can forgive that because they're decent quality. This film isn't of a high standard. The only thing, or one of the things that I thought were fairly decent here, is I did think some of the central performances, especially for May Kelly, were fairly strong. And that's something I will say about some of the Scott Jeffrey films. I do think at times some of the performances by the lead characters are of a decent standard occasionally. I think there is some talent there. It is just not enough of them. And I'm not saying everybody in this film is of a really strong standard, because I don't think they all are. But I do think the two sisters certainly were pretty decent here, and then maybe one or two others. It makes it a little bit easier to swallow if you're not exactly loving and enjoying a film. So, yeah, take what you want from that, guys. If you like Scott Jeffrey produced films, then you're probably going to quite enjoy this one. If you don't, then this definitely is not going to win you over, that's for sure. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.